Between the kids being home and hosting, everything in our house gets used up in summer. With Instacart, I can save money by stocking up on all my favorite summer brands. I save time by getting everything delivered in as fast as an hour. And I save myself a sink full of dirty dishes by stocking up on paper plates for the annual summer cookout. Save more on summer essentials? Spend more time enjoying summer. Add summer to cart. Download the app to get free delivery on your first 3 orders. Offer valid for a limited time. Minimum $10 per order. Additional terms apply.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Kahn Report wherever you get your podcast. You're watching on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And don't forget, you can always read my work on ESPN.com. At some point soon, over the next week before the final cuts, we will be doing a 53-man roster projection that will run on ESPN Plus. So there you go, just a little programming note. And I know I told you that the next time you'd hear from me would be Tuesday morning. Well, I guess I kind of lied because I wanted to go over some roster battles and position battles entering the second preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens. So the next podcast of this will be wrapping up that game. That will come out Tuesday morning. I'll be doing that with the voice of the Commanders, Bram Weinstein. So that will be the next time you hear me after this one. This one can get you ready for the game, but also not just the game, but it can get you ready for the next week or so as these position battles unfold and get down to the end. The final cuts will be made on August 29th. So let's take a look at those. Now, this morning, the Commanders basically made their kicker decision, but to me, this is where it was going to go all along. They released Badgley. They're going to keep Joey Sly. During camp, you really didn't see much of a difference when they would have, I guess, their little kicking competitions. It was more like, okay, you take these 3 kicks from this distance, and this distance, between like 33, 43, 51 yards, whatever. They were pretty even. The one time where the worst miss that Sly had was up in Baltimore, was a 51-yarder. It was just ugly. But that was about it. So when it's even, the tie is going to go to the runner. The runner in this case was Joey Sly. But here's the other part that was a big part of it. And I know that Sly has had some issues with those extra points. They put a great deal of emphasis on the kickoffs, and that's an area where Badgley has really struggled with in his career. And I think that's why he'll probably bounce around, because in the last couple of years, he really wasn't even the main kickoff guy wherever he was at. That becomes a problem because then you have to have someone else do it. And that's not Tress' way. He doesn't want to do it, completely changes the the way he kicks, et cetera. So, and it wasn't just that his kickoffs were short, because I know, the new rule, et cetera. It's that they were often didn't get the hang time, which could lead to longer returns. And they're really going to be about, it's a lot of this season is about limiting turnovers, creating more turnovers, the turnover differential, also field position. And that's a big deal for them. So that's why going into this, Sly always had the advantage. And it's just, and he did have a solid camp. And I don't think Badgley did anything that was different to change their minds. So that's why they're going there. Speaking of punter, Tress Way, still seems to be dealing with some soreness in his lower back. So the Commander signed another punter just to kind of get through the preseason. And we know what Way can do, and you want to make sure that guy is ready to go when the season begins. All right, so let's take a look at some of the position battles entering this game. Just kind of go over them little, in quicker detail, I guess. Let's start at receiver, because I think that's one of the more interesting ones. We know the top 4. So, obviously McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel, Brown. Who's going to be the next 2? Well, Byron Pringle, the guys who've been getting a lot of work there, Dax Milne, Byron Pringle, Kaz Allen. You can throw like a guy like Mitchell Tinsley in there. I don't, and I know that they like Bryson Tremaine is another guy. He's from Stanford. So Tavia Pritchard, their quarterback's coach, clearly knows him. He also has size, something they don't have. But have guys like Tinsley and Tremaine done enough in the preseason to warrant a roster spot? I don't think so, because I don't think they necessarily do anything. I think some of the stuff they need from the roster spots are with the other guys. I think those 2 you can keep on practice squad, see how they develop, and go from there, because they both I know like when watching Tinsley, can he help on special teams? Because if you're one of the last receivers, you have to. One of the times I only watched him one time on, I know he's like on kick coverage. He's in there. In the first preseason game, he was on number one kick coverage. But I watched him try to work as a gunner the other day, for example, against Baltimore, struggled against the double team, 1 rep. So I don't want to extrapolate from there because I didn't see enough of him doing that, but it's something that you pay attention to. So when you look at those last couple of spots, so look at like Pringle, experienced receiver, has a good experience. Milne is much further along than a guy like Kaz Allen as far as a route runner and helping from scrimmage. So if they want a guy who can help from scrimmage, in addition to being a returner, well, then Milne would have an edge there. However, keep in mind with Allen, like they are working him a lot as a returner. He did not return punts in college. Pringle, by the way, he's another guy who's gotten some work as a punt returner, has not returned punts in the NFL, returned them a little bit in college. Obviously, Milne has an advantage in terms of experience returning punts in the NFL. Keep in mind, while we can all look and say who could be more explosive, this and that, the number one thing that they put an emphasis on with the punt return game is ball security. Make a good decision, secure the ball, and go from there. So if you can do those two things and then be explosive or have the ability to maybe get more yards, well, that's obviously to your benefit. But if they're not sure about that aspect, well, then that would be a knock against them. With Allen, keep him, and when he was at UCLA, he converted to a receiver. I think it was his senior year is when he did that. So he's very inexperienced in that role. And you can see that when he's running routes on some of the passes thrown to him, some of the routes you might be rounding off a little bit more. Hands from scrimmage were inconsistent, have not seen inconsistent hands fielding punts. And last week against the Browns felt like he showed some of that quickness. And I like that he's, he has good vision back there to go with that quickness, which is always a good plus for a returner. So watch how he does tonight. But I think if it comes down to, if it's even and they're going to go with, who can help now from scrimmage, well, then Dax Milne gets that call. Pringle, again, I would think would be one of those two spots. So, but those are the interesting guys there. And so again, with Allen, it's also not just where he's at, where can he get to in this offense? I don't think if I know people always get worried, well, if you cut him, someone's going to pick him up. And very rarely does that happen because every team has guys like this. So, and they want to get him onto the practice squad and develop him. But, we'll see if Allen has a big return against the Ravens, or even in the final preseason game, would makes it a lot tougher than to expose him, because now you see if it's just a couple nice returns, well, I don't think that's going to do the trick for another team. But if you get a big return and show that ability by making guys miss with some of that quickness, now you're going to open eyes. Now you make it harder to be cut. So there you go. Watch for that. Offensive line, left guard position, Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul. The reason why they keep having Sadiq Charles in there with the starters when he's healthy, which is key, is because of his ability to block more in space. And if you're running that screen game, you need to get out in space and be able to block. That's where he has an advantage over Chris Paul. So that's one thing to watch. Chris Paul, though, did a nice job in that preseason opener, run blocking, especially. He's got that strength inside. And that's, those D linemen will always talk about his strength in his hands. He also had a nice pulling action where he had a nice block against the Browns as well. So pay attention to that one. But how, if Paul shows, can he block in space on some of the screens? Because that screen game, not even just a screen game, but just whatever other plays, you need to be able to do that. That's where Charles has the advantage, but Paul has the advantage when it comes to just being in a box and blocking with some power. Then how many guys do they keep on that O-line? Is it 10? So who are, right now, the way I look at it based on what what you think, you have your starters, and then you have Cornelius Lucas would be your swing tackle. Well, you're keeping Stromberg because he's a 3rd round pick and he should be on the roster. I mean, he certainly hasn't looked overmatched. I think he needs to get stronger, but he doesn't look overmatched. And he has shown that at guard, he might be able to help in a pinch. So there's one. Braden Daniels, 4th round pick, hasn't had the best camp, but again, he's a 4th round pick. Are you really going to expose him? If I'm assuming they're not going to, so there's another one. That's 3 guys. And then Tyler Larson can play center guard. So if they don't think Stromberg is ready for that, then you have Larson who can do that. And, that would be number 9. And then if Charles, or whoever loses that left guard job would be another backup too. So there's 10 guys right there. That's how it looks right now. We'll see how it unfolds over the next week and a half to see if it stays that way. Another interesting one to watch to me, tight end and running back. And I'm kind of lumping them together because of one guy, Alex Arma. How are they going to be able to? They have used him a lot throughout camp. I have a hard time believing he doesn't make the roster at this point because of that. They're using him a ton. And, I think one way to help this run game is with the usage of the fullback. And that's where he fits in. He's very physical. And I like what I've seen from him in this role. You keep him, you're cutting someone else. Who is that? By the way, the other 3 running back, and you can classify Arma as a swing guy because he's kind of a hybrid tight end / fullback, and nobody else really fills that role for them. There have been times in the past they'll use a tight end in the backfield, but they're not a fullback. I mean, they don't have, you can line up back there, but are you effective in that role? Well, this guy can be effective, but can he line up as a tight end and be effective? He's not going to line up as a traditional tight end, but he can be a move guy and maybe create a little bit of mismatch, but he's really going to be there to be physical in the run game. The other 3 running backs, very clear, is Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson, and Chris Rodriguez. And I like what I've seen from Rodriguez. No reason to think, that kid deserves a spot. And he's shown nothing to show that, he shouldn't be out there. And then again, do you keep Alex Arma? If you keep Arma, how many tight ends? Because let's say the breakdown becomes 25, 25, and 4, 25-0, 25D, and then 3, boy, my math sucks, 3 on special teams or the specialists. So if it's 25, that means on offense, and sometimes they'll keep 26 and then 24 on the other side. It just depends. And then it's how you stack your practice squad. And then it's also how you get to the roster for the first game, because that can change. Anyway, let's say they're going to keep 25 at this point. That would mean, based on our math so far, and I'm going 2 quarterbacks, by the way, and have Jake Fromm on the practice squad. That's how, right? And that could that change? Sure. But that's how going into camp I saw it. And I don't think I've seen anything to change that, to feel like you have to have them up there worried about what may happen. But if you're afraid of exposing them, then that's going to be one less spot somewhere else. So maybe one less lineman, but who? One less, and you're going to, one less, you're not going to keep 2 running backs in Arma because you got all 3 deserve a spot.
NFL Sunday Ticket is now on YouTube and YouTube TV, which means that it just got easier to be an NFL fan, even if you live far away. Like maybe you like the Bears, but you're hibernating in Panthers territory. But with NFL Sunday Ticket, your out-of-market team is never more than a short distance away. Specifically, the distance from you to your remote control. NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. Go to youtube.com/presale to get $50 off.
Terms and embargoes apply. Offer ends 9/19. No refund. Subscription auto renews.
When you're ready to pop the question, the last thing you want to do is second-guess the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can design a one-of-a-kind ring with the ease and convenience of shopping online. Choose your diamond and setting. When you find the one, you'll get it delivered right to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code SPOTIFY to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code SPOTIFY at BlueNile.com for $50 off your purchase. BlueNile.com, code SPOTIFY.
What's up? It's Kaylee Cuoco. When it comes to travel, we all have a happy place. I just went to my happy place. I just went to Maui, and it was truly amazing. Priceline has always been about getting you to your happy place for a happy price, with deals you really can't find anywhere else. Like up to 60% off select hotels in Costa Rica, or 5-star hotels for 2-star prices in Cabo.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
There is still time for one more family adventure this summer. The country's largest climbing and zipline park is open 7 days a week until Labor Day. With 8 different levels, 16 courses, 250 climbing obstacles, and over 4,000 feet of zip lines, the Adventure Park at Sandy Spring, located in Montgomery County, Maryland, is the perfect place to spend the last few days of summer. Once you're back on the ground, head over to Axe Throwing and try one of their brand new games. You can play Battleship, Blackjack, throw at traditional targets, or even upload your own images. They are now accepting group and family reservations for this fall. Can't make it out before school is back in session? Not to worry. The Adventure Park is open Friday through Sunday every weekend this fall. To end the summer right, listeners of this show can now get $10 off any ticket by entering the promo code KEIM23DC at checkout. That's KEIM, K-E-I-M 23DC at checkout. There is still time to get outside and join the adventure at theadventurepark.com. Anyway, so let's go with that notion for now. So at tight end, then it's Logan Thomas, Cole Turner, and then John Bates, and then you put Hodges on the practice squad. That's because I think Arma certainly has a role. If Hodges is healthy, he's inactive. And the question, but you want him on the practice squad to develop because he's got the athletic skill. I mean, I'll tell you what, and this is nothing, but they're going to miss Rodgers this year because that kid would have had a really good year, I think, in this offense. Anyway, that aside, Thomas has to stay healthy, and the durability is what would concern me. He looked really good in camp when he was out there, but he's got to be back out there. So that's how it sets up there. So watch Alex Arma, watch his blocking. He also plays on. He does have some special teams roles, but it's not a pronounced. But I think he would be a special teams guy if he makes it, because you have to be. You can't just save your spot for 4 or 5 snaps a game. All right, now let's go to the defense. Defensive line will be interesting too. And I think then it's like how many D-line versus how many linebackers. Right now, I could see them only keeping 4 linebackers, do 5 warn a spot, and then keeping 11 defensive linemen. And I say that because first of all, Fedarian Mathis dealing with the calf issue. John Allen now has plantar fasciitis. He can play with it, but it's painful. So you may need a little bit more help up there in various situations. And I don't know how long Mathis is going to be out. All we know is that he was in a walking boot up in Baltimore during those joint practices. So how long will he be out? So knowing that, then, you have Ridgeway will be your primary backup when they go to the Cinco package. Even when Mathis was healthy, Ridgeway was in there first. So he would be the backup tackle. Then you have guys like F.A. Obata who can play end and tackle. They've been using James Smith-Williams, I told you the other day, as an end and a tackle. And I think you have to see, because if in a pass rush situation, do you need to have, how are you going to compensate if like Mathis can't go? Mathis, not a great pass rusher, but he is a defensive tackle. So can you get another guy inside who can play both like Obata does? Obata would be their number 1 rotational guy right now in the backups. And so that, but then let's say even if Mathis is healthy and can go this season, then how many of those D ends you're going to keep? Because you have the top 2, Sweat and Young, and then you have Obata, then you have Casey Toohill, James Smith-Williams, KJ Henry, and Andre Jones. And Jones has really played himself onto this roster at this point, showing flashes at defensive end. He can play up, he can play down. He was on the first, I think he was on the first kick cover against the Browns. It's always pay attention to who's out there first on special teams, because there are going to be some guys, if you're on multiple special teams, it's a good thing for you. And I think Jones is one of those guys, big guy who can run. And so that's another way he can help. James Smith-Williams is also on some of those special teams. But I do think they're trying to see which of those DNs. Do not assume that Smith-Williams and Toohill are automatics. I think Toohill, he flashes some at DN. He gives them, he can drop, he can help them with their disguise coverages and all that. So anyway, if they keep 11, they're keeping those 5 DNs. And KJ Henry, he's a draft pick. It's a 5th round pick. They don't like to expose them too much, but he's a different style of player than Jones. He's not going to flash quite as much, a little bit more with power. So that's what you need to watch there. Linebacker. All right. Linebacker again. I think right now, if I'm predicting it, I'm going to put on 4. And that would be, you have Jamin Davis, Barton, Mayo, and then to me, Khaleke Hudson, in that order. That's how I think they see them. And then it's like, does Eifler or Harris flash enough to warrant that 5th spot? And those guys also play special teams, good speed. So I think that's something to watch there. But I think you could put those guys on practice squad, keep them there, and then elevate if needed. So and then defensive back, again, the guys to watch, really, Christian Holmes, I've talked about him. He's on multiple special teams on the first unit, and he's really, really good as a gunner. So he's on there to me. Then it's like, do you keep an 11th guy? Because if you keep 11 here, you're not keeping 11 D linemen. So does Rashad Wildgoose deserve a spot? Well, he plays in the slot. Well, who else does? Benjamin St. If you're starting, your starters are, your top 3 corners are Fuller, Forbes would be on the outside, and then St. Juste on the inside when you go to 3 receivers. So, when you go to three corners. Then you also have Quan Martin, who can play in the slot. You also have Danny Johnson, who can play in the slot. And I think with Johnson, it's I know he had the injury against the Ravens. It's inflammation of the shoulder. How long it comes down, but it's day to day. I think they believe he'll be back for the opener, but we just have to see how long it takes to come down. That's another one to watch. And so right now I would put 10 on there right now from that group. Don't know where it goes over the next week, because whatever happens tonight against the Ravens will help start to shape even more. We've seen things change based on this second preseason game, even based on the third one. Shaka Toney a couple of years ago earned a spot because of his performance in the last preseason game. He made a move that they felt nobody else makes that move. So you got to keep him around to see if he develops. Anyway, that's a quick update from me. I'll be back. Blah, 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 blah. Thank you for tuning in. How about that? Appreciate you listening all the time. Be back on Tuesday, wrapping up the Commanders preseason game against the Ravens with the voice of the Commanders, Graham Weinstein. Talk to you next time.